The alarm that shattered Supreme Commander Kyvren Malthor's meditation was not supposed to exist. It indicated activity in a quarantine zone that had been dead for 3,000 years. Impossible, Kyvren said, his crystalline fingers dancing across the command interface.
Sector 77 Delta has been classified as extinct since the third expansion. There is nothing there to trigger sensors.
His tactical officer, a collection named Vreshthane, pulled up the telemetry with 4 of his 6 manipulator appendages working in synchronized urgency.
Sir, the readings are clear. Multiple power signatures. Technological activity. And they are emanating from the third planet. From Earth. Kyvren felt his primary heart skip. Earth. The human homeworld. But humans are extinct.
We confirmed it 3 millennia ago.
Confirmed extinct or confirmed dormant? That question hung in the air like a death sentence. Because Kyvren knew the answer. The Dominion Ascendant had not exterminated humanity 3,000 years ago. They had done something worse. They had buried them alive.
Pull the historical files, Kyvren ordered.
Full records of the human quarantine protocol.
I need to know exactly what we did to them. The files painted a picture that made Kyvren's secondary hearts race with something that might have been fear or might have been anticipation. 3,000 years ago, when the Dominion Ascendant had been in its expansionist phase, they had encountered Earth.
A primitive world. Pre-faster than light travel. Fractured nations. Chemical weapons. Nuclear arsenals pointed at themselves.
The Dominion had made first contact expecting either submission or easy conquest. They had received neither.
Humans had fought. With everything they had. With weapons that should not have worked against Dominion shielding but did. With tactics that defied conventional military doctrine.
With a ferocity that shocked species who had forgotten what desperation looked like. The war had lasted 17 years. By the end, 3 Dominion fleets had been destroyed.
47 worlds had been rendered uninhabitable by human biological weapons.
And humanity was losing but taking the Dominion down with them.
So the Dominion had made a choice.
Rather than exterminate a species that was proving to be more trouble than it was worth, they had deployed the cryogenesis array.
A weapon that flash froze Earth's atmosphere, plunging every human on the planet into suspended animation.
Then they had sealed the system behind quarantine fields and left humanity frozen, intending to never think about them again.
We assumed the hibernation would be permanent, the historical file concluded. Human biology should not survive 3,000 years of stasis. The quarantine was declared eternal.
The system was removed from all navigational charts. Humanity was considered extinct. Except they are not extinct, Vresh said quietly.
They are waking up.
And sir, the power signatures we are detecting suggest they have been awake for some time.
Possibly decades. Possibly longer. How long?
Based on the industrial signatures, the orbital construction, and the energy output, I would estimate they have been active for at least 50 years.
Maybe a century.
Sir, they have rebuilt.
And they have been very quiet about it. Kyvren stared at the tactical display showing Earth's system. Showing activity where there should be none. Showing a species that had been buried alive 3,000 years ago now stirring in its grave. Send a reconnaissance fleet.
Full stealth protocols. I want to know what we are dealing with before we commit to any action.
And Vresh?
Yes, sir?
Do not underestimate them. Not again.
We learned that lesson the hard way 3,000 years ago.
Let us not repeat that mistake.
The reconnaissance fleet entered Earth's system 5 days later and immediately realized they were not observing a recovering species. They were observing an ambush. Sir, I have multiple contacts, the sensor operator screamed.
They were hiding. Using the asteroid belt as cover.
We have 17 vessels incoming at high velocity.
Fleet Commander Talrik Sver, a veteran of 300 battles, stared at his tactical display with growing disbelief.
The human ships were small.
Primitive looking. Nothing that should concern a Dominion reconnaissance fleet equipped with the most advanced technology in the galaxy.
But they were fast.
Impossibly fast.
And they were moving in patterns that suggested they knew exactly where the Dominion ships were despite stealth systems that should have made detection impossible.
How are they tracking us? Talrix demanded.
Our stealth should be perfect.
Unknown, sir. But they are converging on our position with precision that suggests active targeting. Evasive maneuvers. Prepare to engage. The human ships hit them like a hammer.
Not with energy weapons that could be shielded against.
Not with kinetic projectiles that could be point defensed.
But with something the Dominion had never encountered.
They rammed. At relativistic speeds, human vessels slammed into Dominion ships with the force of nuclear weapons. The impacts were catastrophic.
Shields that could deflect energy and matter meant nothing against solid objects moving at significant fractions of light speed.
3 Dominion ships were destroyed in the first attack wave.
The remaining vessels tried to retreat but found their FTL systems disrupted by what appeared to be localized gravity distortions.
The humans had trapped them.
They are preventing our jump, someone shouted.
We are stuck in system. Then we fight our way out. All weapons, return fire.
The Dominion fleet opened up with everything they had.
Energy beams that could vaporize asteroids.
Missiles that could crack planets. The full arsenal of a civilization that had conquered most of the known galaxy.
The human ships evaded.
With maneuvers that should have liquefied their crews from G-forces.
With acceleration that defied Dominion understanding of physics.
They dodged and weaved and returned fire with weapons that seemed primitive chemical rockets, railgun slugs, fusion warheads, but were deployed with such precision and tactical brilliance that Dominion defenses proved useless. In 17 minutes, the reconnaissance fleet was annihilated. Only a single escape pod survived, launched by Talrix Ver before his ship was bisected by a railgun round the size of a cargo container traveling at 20% of light speed. The pod was recovered by a human vessel. And when Talrix was brought aboard, he found himself face to face with the species the Dominion had thought were extinct. The human who entered the holding cell was female, older, with gray hair and eyes that held 3,000 years of grievance. She introduced herself as Admiral Terrace Halwyn, commander of the Earth Defense Force.
You froze us, she said without preamble. 3,000 years ago. Locked us in hibernation because we would not surrender. Because we fought too hard. Because we were too inconvenient to conquer easily. Do you remember? Talrix did not respond.
His biology made lying impossible, and the truth would not help him.
Of course you remember.
The Dominion never forgets its victories, even when those victories are achieved through war crimes.
Terrace sat down across from him. Let me tell you what happened after you froze us. Let me tell you about the 3,000 years you left us alone. She pulled up a holographic display.
When the cryogenesis array froze Earth, it did not freeze everyone.
About 3 million humans were off-world, on space stations, on the moon, on Mars. They survived. And they watched their homeworld become a tomb. They watched the Dominion seal the system and leave.
And they made a decision.
What decision? That when we woke up, we would be ready for you.
That we would spend however long it took to ensure that humanity never faced extinction again.
So they built. In secret. Using automated systems in self-replicating factories.
They mined the asteroid belt. They industrialized the outer solar system. They developed technologies that the Dominion had never encountered because the Dominion conquered quickly and eliminated threats before those threats could fully develop. For 3,000 years, with no interference from you or anyone else, humans built the most concentrated military-industrial complex in galactic history.
All of it hidden. All of it waiting. All of it preparing for the day we woke up Earth and finished what you started. Talrix felt his secondary organs constricting with what his species recognized as dread. You have been awake. 4 decades. For 93 years. We thought Earth slowly. Carefully. Bringing people back in stages. Rebuilding our civilization while keeping our presence hidden from your sensors. Learning everything we could about the Dominion. About your military. Your weaknesses. Your arrogance. And now we are ready. Ready for what? For this. She activated another display showing tactical maps of Dominion space. Showing fleet positions. Showing supply lines. Showing weaknesses in the most powerful empire in galactic history. You conquered everything. Every species you encountered either submitted or was destroyed. You built an empire spanning 3,000 star systems. You thought you were invincible. Her smile was cold. You were wrong. Because you left one species alive. You left us alone for 3,000 years. And we spent that time preparing to tear your empire apart. You cannot defeat the Dominion. We control 3,000 systems. Our fleets number in the hundreds of thousands. Yes. And you spread those fleets very thin because you thought there were no threats left to face. Meanwhile, humanity has concentrated every resource on building the perfect weapons to fight you. We studied your conflicts. Your tactics. Your technology. We found every weakness. Every vulnerability. Every systemic failure in your military doctrine. And we built specifically to exploit them. This is insane. Even with preparation, you are one species. We are an empire. No. You are an empire that has been at peace for 1,000 years. Your military has not faced a real threat in centuries. Your soldiers train for suppression operations, not pure combat. Your ships are designed for intimidation, not warfare. You have become fat and slow and arrogant. And we are going to remind you what real war looks like. Supreme Commander Kyvren received the report of the reconnaissance fleet's destruction with the calm that came from 300 years of military service. He had been expecting something like this. Humans would not wake up without being prepared. But he had not expected them to be this prepared. They destroyed 17 ships in 17 minutes, Vresh reported. The tactics suggest they have been studying our combat doctrine extensively. They knew how to counter our shields. How to disrupt our FTL. How to exploit our defensive gaps. They also took a prisoner, Kyvren noted. Fleet Commander Talrix Fair. A veteran. Someone who knows Dominion operations. They will interrogate him. Extract information. Use it against us. Should we assume he has been compromised? We should assume everything has been compromised. The humans have had 3,000 years to prepare. They have spent that time learning everything about us while we forgot they existed. That is a tactical advantage we cannot overcome easily. What do you recommend? Kyvren pulled up the strategic map showing the Dominion's vast empire. 3,000 star systems. Hundreds of millions of ships if you counted civilian vessels. Trillions of beings living under Dominion law. All of it built on the assumption that no one would challenge them. That peace was permanent. That the age of conquest was over. I recommend we prepare for the largest war the Dominion has faced in 1,000 years. Because the humans are not going to stop with one system. They are going to come for all of us. And we will need to be ready. How do you prepare for an enemy that has spent 3,000 years preparing for you? By learning from history. By remembering that humans do not fight the way other species fight. They do not respect conventional warfare. They use everything. Biological weapons. Nuclear weapons. Relativistic kill vehicles. Psychological warfare. Economic disruption. They fight to win, not to follow rules. That is what makes them dangerous. Of course, it is a trap. Everything in war is a trap. The question is whether the trap is worth springing. She pulled up Kyvren's service record. 300 years of military command. A reputation for ruthlessness but also pragmatism. Someone who understood when to fight and when to negotiate. I think he is serious.
I think he realizes that continuing this war will destroy his empire even if the Dominion technically wins.
What do you want to do?
Meet with him. Hear what he has to say. Make it clear what our terms are. And see if peace is possible. The negotiations took place on a neutral station maintained by a third-party species.
Kyvren arrived with minimal security.
Terrace did the same. They met in a simple conference room with no weapons, no guards, just two military commanders who had been shaped by the same war 3,000 years apart.
I will be direct, Kyvren said. Humanity cannot defeat the Dominion in open warfare.
Your sabotage is effective, but we will adapt.
We will rebuild.
We will eventually overcome your industrial advantage through sheer numbers.
This war will last decades.
Perhaps centuries. And it will kill trillions on both sides.
I agree, Terrace said. Which is why we have no intention of fighting in open war. We will continue dismantling your empire from within. Encouraging rebellion. Supporting independence movements. Cutting supply lines.
Making it economically impossible for you to maintain control. Eventually, the Dominion will collapse not from military defeat but from exhaustion.
Also accurate.
So we have a choice.
Mutual destruction or mutual survival.
What are you proposing?
Peace. But not submission. Humanity will have full sovereignty. Your system will be removed from Dominion authority. You will be recognized as an independent power.
In exchange, you cease sabotage operations and withdraw your infiltrators.
That is not enough.
The Dominion froze 3 billion people for 3,000 years. That crime demands justice.
Justice would be a war that kills trillions more. I am offering accountability instead. The Dominion will formally acknowledge the atrocity. We will pay reparations.
We will establish protocols preventing future similar actions. But we will not surrender our empire to be dismantled because of a crime committed 3 millennia ago by people who are long dead.
Terrace was silent for a long moment. Then, you are right that we cannot defeat you militarily without catastrophic cost. But you are wrong about one thing. We can dismantle your empire. We have spent 3,000 years preparing for it. We have agents in place. Technologies you have never seen. Strategies you cannot counter.
We can break you apart piece by piece until there is nothing left.
And then what? You rule the ruins? You become the next empire? You repeat the cycle? No. We prevent anyone from becoming the next empire. We create a balance of power where no single species can dominate. Where conquest becomes impossible because resistance always has support. That is what we learned from you.
That empires are inherently unstable.
That peace through domination is not peace.
You want to remake galactic civilization. We want to ensure that what happened to us never happens to anyone else. That no species faces the choice between submission and extinction.
That is worth fighting for. The question is whether you will fight us or join us. Kyvren processed this. The human was not offering conquest. She was offering revolution. A complete restructuring of how galactic civilization functioned.
It was ambitious.
Idealistic. Probably impossible.
But it was also the only path that did not lead to war without end.
I cannot speak for the Dominion, he said finally. But I can recommend a path forward. A gradual transition. A dismantling of empire that does not collapse into chaos. It will take generations. It will require cooperation.
It will mean admitting that the Dominion's way was wrong.
Are you willing to work with us instead of against us? Are you willing to work toward a galaxy where the Dominion no longer exists as an empire? If it means preventing a war that destroys everything, yes. They negotiated for 3 weeks. The resulting treaty was complex, controversial, and absolutely necessary.
The Dominion would begin transitioning toward a confederation of independent systems.
humanity would share technologies that made conquest economically non-viable.
Both sides would work toward a new galactic order.
It was not justice.
It was not revenge. But it was survival.
And sometimes, survival had to be enough.
100 years after the treaty, the Dominion Ascendant no longer existed. In its place was the Galactic Confederation, hundreds of independent systems cooperating for mutual benefit rather than being controlled from above.
Terrace Hallwyn did not live to see the full transformation.
But before she died, she gave a final speech that was recorded and distributed across the galaxy. 3,000 years ago, the Dominion froze us because we would not submit.
They thought they were ending a threat.
Instead, they created something worse, a species with 3 millennia to prepare.
To learn. To plan.
We woke up ready for war.
We could have destroyed them. But we chose differently. We chose to dismantle Empire itself.
To create a galaxy where no one faces the choice we faced.
That is our legacy.
Not the war we could have won, but the peace we chose to build. Kyvren, who lived another 50 years after Terrace died, added his own final statement. The Dominion conquered everything.
We thought we were invincible.
Then humanity woke up and taught us a lesson we should have learned long ago, that conquest is not strength.
That empire is not peace. That true power comes not from subjugating others but from cooperation. We learned it the hard way.
We learned it from a species we had frozen for 3,000 years. We learned it because they were patient enough to prepare and wise enough to choose peace over vengeance.
The galaxy is better for it.
200 years later, scholars studying the period would debate whether humanity had saved the galaxy or simply exchanged one form of control for another.
But everyone agreed on one fundamental truth.
The Dominion had conquered everything. They had ruled for 3,000 years. They had thought peace was permanent and their empire eternal.
Then humanity woke up. And everything changed. Not through force.
Not through conquest.
But through the simple demonstration that empire was obsolete. That cooperation was more powerful than domination. That a species with nothing but time and determination could reshape the entire galaxy. They conquered everything. Then humanity woke up.
And showed them that conquest was never the answer.
That was the lesson. That was the legacy. That was the truth that transformed galactic civilization. One patient species. One long preparation.
One choice to build instead of destroy. And a galaxy that learned that the most dangerous thing you can do is underestimate a species that has 3,000 years to prepare, learn, and plan. The Dominion conquered everything.
Then they buried humanity alive.
And humanity used that time to prepare the end of empire itself.
Not through vengeance. Through patience. Through wisdom.
Through the understanding that true victory is not defeating your enemy but obsoleting the entire concept of enemy.
That was humanity's gift to the galaxy.
That was what 3,000 years of preparation had built.
Not a weapon.
But a better world. If you enjoyed the story, like the video and subscribe for more. Thank you.